So why is Pfizer scared to testify in front of the European Union? So the CEO, Albert Bourla, was set to testify in front of the European Union and backed out. There he is. There's Albert Bourla. And he was supposed to pull out of this. He pulled out of this appointment to testify before Europeans' Parliament's Special Committee on COVID-19, at which he was expected to face tough questions on how these vaccine deals were struck. How did you pull these things off? How were you able to get these vaccine in the hands of Europeans? Like, what was the secret dealings that unfolded? How were these contracts put together? Right, we've been talking about on this show for quite a while, right? I mean, about these contracts and what stuff is hidden in these contracts. So the decision follows an audit report into the EU's vaccine procurement strategy, published earlier in the month, according to Politico, that raised new questions about contact between Bourla himself and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, that preceded Pfizer receiving a multi-billion-dollar vaccine contract, multi-billion euro contract. So we wanted to know, and a lot of people wanted to know, like, why is there this cushy relationship between Bourla and von der Leyen? The head of the U.S. pharmaceutical giant, the largest supplier of COVID-19 vaccines to the EU, was scheduled to appear before the panel on October 10th, just a few days from now. The committee is meeting with key officials involved in the EU's vaccine procurement process to draw lessons on how to respond to future pandemics, according to Politico. Other pharmaceutical companies they've already met with them, including the CEO of Moderna and senior officials from AstraZeneca. And unfortunately, they're pissed off. The EU says, what the hell? We have deep regrets that they have taken this position. We should have gotten answers from Pfizer. So after a visit to BioNTech's headquarters last week, Van Bremt, the Belgian MEP, said in a written statement that she looked forward to discussions with other CEOs, including Bourla, on October 10th. They found in this report, this is the most stunning piece of this, they found that von der Leyen had been directly involved in preliminary negotiations for EU's biggest vaccine contract, up to 1.8 billion doses of the Pfizer vaccine, which concluded in May of 2021. And this is a departure from the negotiating procedure followed with other contracts. So why was she involved in this one? Don't we deserve some answers in this? So a negotiating team was usually involved in making these negotiations with the other members of the biopharmaceutical complex. But why this time? Was she on the phone? There's text messages. There's lots of communication going back and forth between her and Bourla. Why? The EU watchdog also noted that the Commission refused to provide records of the discussions with Pfizer, either in the form of minutes. So they're like, I don't know. Why are they blocking Ursula von der Leyen's communications with Pfizer? Shouldn't we all have a chance to see that as well? In the same way that we should find out exactly how these contracts were negotiated in the United States. We've seen certain countries actually going to court over this. And we're hoping, I think it was country of Bolivia, where we had a judge in Bolivia demanding that they be unsealed. So we might actually get some insight, although it'll be directly related to Bolivia. So it's not going to, might be similar, but it's going to be Bolivia. It's not going to be EU or United States of America. So they had text messages back and forth. And Pfizer says that the company's president of international development markets would attend the meeting instead. We can't have the CEO go and talk about all these shifty contracts, but we'll just send our international development markets specialist. Okay, that's really what we want to see.
PR guy.
Yeah, we'll send our PR guy to meet with you.
How does that work? Like if I get called like before Congress is like, you need to appear. I don't know why they would be calling me, but let's say that they do. Can I be like, actually, I'm just going to send David because, he's my PR guy.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen that happen. Doesn't go over too well, and certainly doesn't look good. Like, we want to hear from you actively involved in these negotiations. I mean, we want to know why Ursula Von Der Leyen was texting the CEO of Pfizer and going around the normal committee structure. What are they hiding? What are they keeping from us? Because that's where my mind goes right away. And by the way, it's not without precedent. We already know that they've been actively hiding things from us, right? The only way we even know about certain data points is because they were forced to under a court order and shielded and protected by the FDA. So I would love to know, and by the way, the New York Times was actively involved in breaking this story too, which is actually surprising. And they sort of uncovered a huge piece of this, these text messages back and forth with the Pfizer CEO and Von der Leyen. And it was apparently said that the European Union critics had questioned her leadership and her handling of the crisis. And she says it was a low point. And then she had been, for months, according to the New York Times, she had been exchanging texts and calls with the CEO of Pfizer. As they spoke, two things became clear, the New York Times says. Pfizer might have more doses that it could offer the EU, many more, and the European Union would be thrilled to have them and pay for them. And then she lined up all of these additional doses and sort of fast-tracked this approval process and all of this. So she was able to contract a 900 million dose order through 2023, and then an option for another 900 million dose order after that. So again, what's behind these sort of secret dealings? I'd like to know. But the FDA, of course, in the United States, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so if there's nothing, let's just play devil's advocate here, and we'll just give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say there is nothing shady going on and it's all above board. This is a textbook example of how to make something look like a conspiracy, even if it's not. If everything is on the up and up, right, you don't have backdoor meetings and secret texts and stuff like that. So it's just there's no other way to interpret it because that's the only way they allow you to interpret it.
Exactly. Right. If it was all on the up and up, we wouldn't just go to the meeting and let us know what were you talking about with Von der Leyen. Do you have any concerns in these contracts at all about vaccine efficacy or adverse effects or anything?
Well, and seeing as how we, the people, funded the research that created those vaccines, I think it's our right to know everything.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And it's unfortunate because in these text messages or in these other contracts we've reported on the show, right? A lot of the back and forth in these contracts is, well, they have pure immunity, right? So no matter what happens, they're protected. They are shielded and protected. And what were some of the early contracts were like, we will pay you no matter what, right? If it's a total failure, it doesn't matter. We're paying you this amount no matter what happens. If I'm not mistaken. But it was a total cluster, and of course a total.
And the fact that we invested, we personally invested our money into the research and everything, and testing of these vaccines, what percentage of the profit do we then get back? What are they sending us in return for our investment in there? And because that means they basically did all the research, got the patents and everything on us. So I feel like, at the very least, we should get what? You think 15% kickbacks? Decent?
Right. Or at least our health.
Yeah.
Right? That would be nice to know that we're safe. Well, we don't get that because there's a new story out this morning on the FDA, which has already, of course, protected and shielded these biopharmaceutical companies. According to the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is refusing to release the results of autopsies now conducted on people who died after getting these jabs. The FDA says it is barred from releasing medical files, but a drug safety advocate says that it could release the autopsies with personal information redacted, just like the name of our show. The refusal was issued to the Epoch Times, which submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for all autopsy reported data obtained by the FDA concerning any deaths reported to the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System following the vaccine. But we don't get that information, unfortunately. So that's going to be kept. The FDA declined to release any reports, even redacted copies. The FDA and other agencies are tasked with investigating the reports. Authorities request and review medical records to vet the reports, including autopsies. The FDA is citing federal law, which enables agencies to withhold information if the agency reasonably foresees that disclosure would harm an interest protected by an exemption, with the exemption being personnel, and medical files and similar files that disclose of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. So if the person died, we don't get, that person's dead. What kind of privacy do they have then at that point? Wouldn't it actually benefit humanity to know what's going on here? But no, we're not going to release that information. So we're going to keep it under seal. Like I said, it's like we need to wake up. We are being lied to left and right. And as the Epoch Times reveals, Kim Witzak, which is a drug safety advocate who advises the FDA as part of the Pharmacologic Drugs Advisory Committee, said that these reports could easily be released with personal information blacked out. The personal information, Kim says, could easily be redacted without losing the potential learnings from the autopsy.
I was going to say, you learn a lot more generally after. That's why they have cadavers in places that you can do research on, because you can learn a lot more from the death than you could from the life, because you can actually get in there and dig into places you couldn't when they were alive.
Right. Find out what's going on with these blood clots. Find out what else is in there. Mm-hmm. Autopsies are examinations of deceased people, of course. And autopsies can be an important part of postmodern analysis and should be done especially with increased deaths following all of this by the biopharmaceutical companies. Will we get answers? I don't know. What country will be brave enough to do it? Will it be Israel, which doesn't even have an adverse effects reporting system in place?
You mean mini-me?
Mini-me. Mini-US? Will it be Brazil? Who will be brave to tell us what's actually going on here? Scotland also today announcing a study, an increase of infant deaths. So they're going to be looking at that. Why suddenly so many? Why? We want to know. They're not drawing any conclusions from that. They just want to know. They want to investigate. Good for them. But we need answers on this. And will we get it? I don't know. Let us know your thoughts on this story and more. Remember, if you subscribe to the channel, we welcome all of you here. I think we're closing in on 1.2 million folks here on the channel. So thank you so much for supporting Redacted. Our goal with this show is to follow the truth wherever it takes us, to cover the stories you won't see in the mainstream media. And I think we've created a great community here. It's amazing. It really pains me. I think, okay, what we do with this show, hopefully, is provide you with an alternative source of news. We're bringing in facts and data from other countries that is largely blocked, that you don't get to see if you're tuning into CNN in America, the BBC in England, or wherever else. And just watching the Sunday shows yesterday, going through and pulling out some really ridiculous comments by these guys. It just pains me. I'm like, my God, this is what Western media is. It's just a disgusting display of propaganda and garbage. And of course, they're being funneled and funded by billionaires, right? So that's what you get when you pick up the newspaper, when you're at the airport and you see CNN on the TV. It doesn't matter. It's just absolute garbage.
Well, and it's after, in my journey for truth seeking, it's once one story and narrative falls apart, you start to see the holes in all of them. And then a pattern starts to appear. And then you're like, oh my gosh, the pattern of these people is the same thing with every single thing that happens. And so after that happens, then you start to critique everything. And then you start to realize even more. And it can be scary. Mm-hmm. It can be very scary to go down some of these rabbit holes because you don't want to come out knowing what you now know. Sometimes that's very, very hard to take, but it's part of truth seeking. Some of it you're going to get wrong, some of it you're going to get right, but on that journey, it's what has to happen.
I was having a conversation once with a news anchor at Fox News. That person's name will remain nameless. I will not tell you who she was, but we were talking about a big story, that is largely not is ignored in the mainstream media. And she said, "Oh, I can't think about that. I've got a child. I can't think about that. That's I just can't." I thought, well, what do you mean you can't think about it? Like you're just like literally compartmentalizing your brain about what information you can think about? Okay. And you're labeled a conspiracy theorist then if you do think about it or you do research it. I mean, why do you think that we're seeing food shortages around the world right now? Right? Why is there a huge surge in people like ordering Berkey water filters? And you look at the Google search results, by the way, as I did last night, people searching for water filtration systems to protect their families, so they can get clean water. What are people going to do to be able to, like ordering seeds, trying to create their own gardens because the government is coming after them?
Well, and I want to like, this is what happened to me personally. Like last year, or a little bit more than last year, when we were talking a lot about the vaccines and stuff, and I was like, I'm not doing it, and everybody's like, you're a conspiracy nut, you're crazy. And now, if I were to say that I did do it, I'm a conspiracy nut, and all this other stuff. So it's like the narratives change, but it's like the information changes. And so that's why you can't go hard on people if they still believe something that you don't, because they haven't made it to where you are yet. You got to have patience and let them get there, because sometimes it's hard to get there.
Yeah, it is. And look, when you are lied to daily, like most of you have jobs, right? You get up and you work hard every day, and you get up and you're taking care of your family. You go off to a job. And you're on the road, and you get to your job, and then you come home and you have a little bit of time maybe to watch the news, and you flip on or something, and you see this garbage being thrown at you, and then you pick up the newspaper, and it's just propaganda telling you to do something or how to live your life. It's very hard to seek out and then seek alternative sources of news to actually provide you with the truth. Like, it takes effort. So all of you who are watching right now, thank you for carving out time to do that.